There's no denying the sense of pride in our hearts when our Kenyan athletes smash world records, when they defy all odds and win their races. But it's not an easy profession. It's about discipline and sacrifice and a lot of pain. It's always about moving from one race to the next, to the next, to the next. And we complete a series that we've had running titled Of Races, Running and Life, with a conversation featuring three amazing Kenyans, all of them deeply rooted in sport and athletics in Kenya. The first, the CEO of Keino Sports Marketing, Martin Keino. The second, CEO of IMG Kenya, Peter Gacheru. And the third, Catherine the Great. You don't know who she is? How about Catherine Ndereba? Let's live out loud with our panel next. Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. My name is Sheila Mwanyega. Thank you for finding this channel. Please click that bell and hit subscribe. That way you've subscribed to my channel, number one. Number two, you've hit notifications so you never miss an episode when we upload. And we are at Sax and Violins, located at the waterfront Karen, set up shop at East Africa's premier retail and lifestyle destination. It's an incredible place to be, so we hope to see you out at the waterfront Karen. You've arrived. And joining me for a conversation on this final part of our series of races, running and life is my panel, starting with CEO of IMG Kenya, Peter Gacheru. Sasa. I threw you that one. You know, CEOs apparently don't know the right answer to Sasa. Nifiti, au poa. We've also got Catherine Ndereba, a living legend. This is an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you for making the time.
You're welcome.
And of course, the founder and CEO of Keino Sports Marketing, Martin Keino. What can I say? Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I am very, very well. It's a pleasure and an honor to be in your presence and for you to make the time to be here with us. There's a lot we can talk about when it comes to sports, and I think it's only fitting that we kick off the conversation with you, descended from greatness. What was it like having your father as a father? Because, we know him as an extraordinary champion. What was that like for you?
It was normal, actually, growing up, being, the son of famous. Of course, slightly different that, a lot more attention towards him. You see his name, you see him featured different platforms. We got the feeling from a young age that he was somebody important. But it was wonderful to grow up in that environment, in that he exposed us to quite a lot, but tried to keep things normal for us. Right. So it was a wonderful childhood.
When you say normal, I'm thinking to myself, every Monday morning, children, time to run. Did he get all of you running a lot?
No, not really. I think we're quite fortunate that he didn't pressure us into the sport. He just let us discover it on our own. And I was one of the few in the family who took up running professionally.
We're going to speak about that in just a moment, but right now I move to Catherine Ndereba.
Yes.
I'm still pinching myself that I'm sitting right next to you because I've watched you run on television. I've watched you. I don't think there's anybody who's done some of the things, in fact, not even some of the things, most of the things that you've been able to achieve with your career running marathons. And I wonder to myself, when you were growing up, is it something you always knew you were going to do? Did you go to sleep at night and say, dear God, thank you for today because I ran a bit more, so one day I'm going to become this great marathon athlete? Did you always know this is what you do?
Not really. All I can say is it's like a discovery of each and every moment. Because even when I started, I didn't even know that I can become who I am today. Yes. It all started like any other kid when we were in school and we could be asked learn from this point to the other, and it keep on developing and until to the point of becoming a professional runner.
You've represented Kenya and represented Kenya so very well. We salute you and we honor all of your achievements. And before we continue, with achievements, because it's not easy doing what you do, achieving what you've also been able to achieve, Martin, I'd like to, put, Peter into this conversation. And no, you're not an athlete.
Not at this level, definitely.
There are very few at this level, of that we can all be sure. But you have watched so many talents grow. You have been part of the Kenyan sports industry in a very interesting way, looking at it from a point of developing not only just the young athletes, but looking at the marketing, looking at what happens to these talents in terms of rebranding, in terms of reinvention. Because once again, athletics is not, it has its shelf life. You can only do so much for a certain period of time, but then what happens next? So let's talk about the evolution of our industry. What have you seen and what have you experienced?
I think I was quite fortunate to come from what people call the minor sports, a sport that we were struggling to develop in this country, going up to play at the Commonwealth Games. But even at that stage, our team wasn't, anywhere to make a mark in the global scenes like they do in athletics. So the concept of developing the sport was always core to me, and I had the opportunity to serve at the Badminton World Federation for a total of 13 years. And I got firsthand to see what other countries were doing in developing their sports, and putting in a lot of effort in moving people to stars, and the energy that they actually put in, and coming back home and seeing that we were not actually doing enough of that. And there was a gap between what was happening on our field of play and our marketing side of things. So there exists a gap which we've been really passionate to try and fill between our corporate sponsors, our federations, and our athletes. Yeah. So right from the development side of things to the time people actually become champions, and how much they can actually generate in terms of revenue and livelihoods throughout their careers and beyond.
Growing up, we wanted to become you. Yes. We wanted to be these amazing track stars because we'd hear about diamond races, we'd hear about huge sums of money that you as athletes were all going to win when you won your races. Let's talk about the real truth about the monies, the sums, and the money that was being made at the time. Catherine, how big were those kitties? Were they as big as we imagined they were?
Not really. I normally know that most of our people in Kenya, or wherever it is, when you mention like somebody is a sports person, they think like you are getting paid with a huge amount of money. Different races have got different payment. So it's only those big cities marathon where you have a lot of money, like New York, London, Boston Marathon, and maybe Chicago. The rest of the races have got very low, whatever kind of payment.
Okay. So it's interesting that you say, Boston, Chicago, and those are marathons that she won.
Yes.
So we will revisit. But in your opinion, Martin, looking at the sums of money, that athletes have been privy to, what they were then, what they are now. Are they bigger now or were they bigger then?
In different contexts, track and field, as opposed to marathons, back from the mid-90s to sort of 2010, there was quite a lot of money on the track, much more then than it is now. On the track. Then the shift changed to the marathon, where there's probably a lot more money in the marathon than there is on the track. So over the years it has changed, and there's many factors that have attributed to that decline. Say on the track, the money on the track. Lots of sponsors have come out. There's fewer races, and probably the reason to that is probably the marketability of track and field. There's very few stars now that attract people to stadiums. People are willing to pay, and sponsors, of course, it reflects on the sponsorship of that. So money in the sport has fluctuated over the years.
Looking at the issue of money, we've read in the newspapers, unfortunate incidents that have happened to some of our stars. when it comes to what happens to them, perhaps when injuries happen, perhaps when it is now time to move on to the next level of life and you can no longer run and win those sums of money that you could earn. When you look at athletes in Kenya today and money management, is there any kind of training, or is it one of those things where ujisort, ukishinda umeshinda, pesa ni yako, jisort, na usiposhinda, try again until you win your big sums of money, alafu funika for Micah. Is there any kind of money management and training for athletes in as much as you go and train and prepare physically? What about financially?
I don't think we, as a country, we're really doing enough in that area. We have a few workshops here and there, but it takes a little bit more. The life of an athlete, you know, it could span by the time he's for the track and field, by the time they're 25, 28, they're out. And what do they do after that? They need to, they did not spend time like somebody who is doing engineering, developing his career at that time, or an auditor growing his career. So it becomes very difficult for them now to try a new career when they're 30, 35. And therefore, we really need to put in a little bit more effort in trying to understand, given the short shelf life that athletes have, how do they really need to actually prepare for the time after their active sport? How do they invest the money that comes in early? We've seen some unfortunate cases where people have made, I can remember one incident where somebody did the jackpot, I think at 19, and that was it in 2008, plus a gold medal, but we don't hear of them anymore. How do they invest their money? I mean, it could have been as much as $1 million, which should really be a life-changing amount in this world. So there exists a gap. We haven't paid enough attention to it because there are opportunities for athletes to continue generating revenue outside the field of play, in commercial endorsements, in speaking opportunities and other avenues like that are still related to the sport, but we're seeing very few of them keeping the same avenue. Okay. Maybe they're going into farming and they could be quite successful, or other businesses, but there's definitely a gap in terms of impacting the right knowledge, exposure to, because some of them are really young and they start quite early. I mean, you give anybody $1 million at 20, you're likely to mess him up quite a bit.
Oh yes, yeah. The shopping sprees will be epic.
Yes.
That is quite true. But speaking about shelf life, you decided to retire at the age of 41, and it's okay, you know. You decided, and it was a choice you wanted to make for yourself. Yes. But running wasn't your only career. You also had another career running alongside running. So tell us about what made you decide to not only just keep this running, but to also keep this other one running.
Why I just decided to keep my other learning is that even before I became a professional athlete, I started from Kenya prisons. Right after school, I got enrolled by Kenya prisons as a prison officer. And now that's where I got a coach and I had my talent developed. And thank God, through the training, I was able to get to the professional running. And now, when I was done with learning, I just felt like now this is my time now to get back there and get to give back to the community.
It's still service. You know, you've represented Kenya, that's still service, and now you're still in the Kenya prisons and you're still serving Kenya in a different capacity. Coming back to you, you know, I can't help but think of reinvention. I look at you and I see what you've been able to achieve. I didn't even know there was a career as pace setters. Let me tell you, I used to think it's pacemaker, then there was pace setter. But you've gone through a full spectrum, a full development really of this is me, this is what I'm good at, this is where I can branch into, I can try this for a little period of time, and then I can grow into this. Let's talk about the importance of reinvention, especially for athletes.
It's very important, you know, because athletics is a short time frame of part of your life, and you must move on from your actual running career, and you must be prepared for the afterlife, the reinvention of you. And I always say that, for an athlete, you're only, say, one injury away from oblivion. So you must prepare for the afterlife kind of thing. I was fortunate that I had the benefit of exposure and in part education to know exactly what I want after my career in athletics. And not many have that luxury of deciding, okay, this is what I want to do. Sometimes, misfortune comes through and you're forced to get out of the sport, and you're not prepared for that kind of thing. So I was prepared for what I wanted to do after sport, and having the benefit of exposure, like I said earlier, I really researched, what would happen to an athlete after, and really took the steps to make that happen, and knowing that life begins afresh after athletics. And if you have the chance to go after what you really want, then it makes it all worthwhile. So you're not stuck doing, something you don't enjoy.
Trial and error,
Indeed,
exactly.
indeed.
Or even worse, something you don't enjoy simply because you have to pay a bill.
Absolutely.
At the end of the month.
Indeed. And so it was, I wish many of our athletes would have the preparation, or at least to know what would they want to do beyond your athletics career. So you start working on early enough, be it going back to school, or learning a new skill, or using your experience in athletics to go after what you want, be it say sports law, sports medicine, any other career apart from
from what
you actually
primary
do.
focus at the time.
Indeed.
Okay, looking at planning ahead and preparation for the next phase in career, I can't help but think about what you just mentioned a little while ago. What IMG Kenya is very passionate about, when I think about sports and events in Kenya, IMG is not too far away. And I think about how reinvention is necessary for anybody in the creative space, because there's always the next that's coming. There's always the next coming. And we're living in the day and age of social media. Our athletes and social media, there's potential for so much more for them online than traditional ways of finding endorsements in what used to be the way that you could do it. I mean, we've come a long way from billboards on the sides of the road. Things are evolving, and I'm thinking about athletes who need to be recognized, who need to be celebrated, because that's always a concern. I could probably walk with Catherine down the streets in Nairobi and count how many people would know who she is.
Yeah.
Yet I would walk with her in Boston probably, and she could count how many people know who I am. There's a discrepancy here. The way our athletes are treated overseas and the way they're treated here are two very different things.
We're living in a very interesting times, especially in the media and marketing space. So what we do at IMG is try and bridge the gap between what our sports federations and what our athletes want, especially in terms of their funding, and what corporates actually want from the sponsorships. And you'll find that they actually have different objectives. Sponsors definitely want to sell our product or something, and the federations, of course, want to fund the sport in very, very various ways. Now, in the space that we are in, the corporate would be looking for a very ready product. They would be looking for a product that's ready. So then the responsibility falls on the athletes themselves as individuals, because they're likely to benefit just as they train, to actually start understanding the marketing space. And the federations, obviously, if they can help in developing these athletes, not just on what they want in their core skills for their sport, but going beyond in terms of the kind of marketability that they actually have. And one of the areas, as you mentioned, is social media. And you have to engage with fans. It goes beyond just crossing the line first. It's how do you engage with the fans? It doesn't matter which industry you're in. The fans are basically who make the stars. The fans are actually the ones who drive the sponsorship. So the sponsors will go where the fans are. you have many fans, you drive there. So if an athlete basically works very hard at crossing the line, but actually neglects engaging with the audience, engaging with the fans, then eventually you'll find that their lifespan will be very, very short. As we say today, the channels to which fans engage with the sports are just so many. I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we all watched VOK or KBC, and therefore the athlete didn't have to work that much harder to be seen because we all watch the same channel, as we say. But today they have to really engage. We want to know if Catherine is running today, how did she work out? How many times did she start hitting the road? How many hours does she do in a week? And we want to hear it from her. We want to know that she woke up today and, then it was raining and therefore she had to postpone. What did she do, with our family? And these are the areas, the soft areas that our athletes need to engage in. One of the reasons that our athletes are not known is because we've not engaged with fans beyond the track. If you're running 100 meters and you have 10 seconds, it's over in 10 seconds.
We didn't even see your face.
We didn't
zoomed by so fast.
We didn't even see your face. But there is another opportunity. And that is why, people like yourself have actually taken the space and engaged with your fans and audiences on a daily basis. And they actually feel like they live with you. Yeah. So athletes need to go into that space.
Okay.
You could check Usain Bolt's handles today. Very active. He's retired in 2017, but he's still very, very active.
Always something happening there. And you want to add to that? So
yes. If you look at, of course, Usain Bolt's successes and how it translates into financial success, he makes far more money off the track than he does on the track, running 10 seconds. And why is that? Is that because he's very engaging with his fan. His fan engagement proposition is fantastic, and sadly, with the exception of, say, Eliud Kipchoge here in Kenya, who has really taken, his social media engagement to another level. A lot more Kenyan athletes need to do that because, most of the public just kind of dismisses the Kenyan runners as just, boring types who don't really use their notoriety, to make a living beyond sports. So that social media, the social media platform becomes very important, and it takes a bit more education and a lot more interest in making that happen. It just doesn't happen just like that. It just doesn't happen. So it's very important. Particularly for marketers, because everybody's looking for the metrics behind your numbers. How many can you influence? Who follows you? Or how many follow you? To have strong presence, to have attraction for sponsorship.
All right, still in the field of social media and using it. Social media, anything is news. Even bad news is good news. And some weeks ago, of course, there was a cry for help by one of our very own Aspel Kiprop, and he took to social media and really completely disrupted everything, and everybody was now listening and paying attention. Catherine, I come back to you and say, probably social media wasn't a thing when you were breaking all these records, and it really should have been a thing. There should be a Catherine Ndereba Day, there should be a Kipchoge Keino Day. Yes. There's certain things that we as a nation could do a lot better. But looking at social media and looking at what you were able to achieve, do you think if you had access to social media at the time you were doing the things you were doing, things would have taken off in a different direction, or do you think things would have been the same?
I believe so. Though myself, I'm not all that, good at social media. I know my manager tried a little bit to get me into it, and I wasn't. I never picked up.
Right.
Yes.
But you do think it would have been different?
A lot of interest, yes.
Okay. Because I think there'd be so many men and women across the world who can talk to you directly or just have a sneak peek, because I think for athletes you're always in the training camps, you're secluded, you're not out here pambaning in the Mathri with us. We're not sitting in the traffic jams together. If anything, you're already racing past us in the traffic jams, going where you need to go. But looking at what you know now, for a generation that's coming after you, what would be your advice to the next Catherine Ndereba?
My advice to the next generation is that they should take their career very seriously, and they should not have their mind like bowed. It has to be open, knowing that there is today and there will be tomorrow. So as they live today, they should also look at, they should think long term.
Right.
Yeah, not short term.
Okay. Martin.
Yes.
There's a little Martin somewhere who's just thinking, I'm gonna make it, me. And
Well, yes, I have quite a bit to encourage the future or the younger stars. That as much as you want success on the field, prepare for success off the field.
yes.
You know, engage with your fans positively, obviously on social media. Try and get as much education in terms of knowledge about your sport and other things, because nowadays it's not just about sport. You know, everything ties into sports. You know, that that would benefit you. And sport is unique in that, you know, all other careers apply to it. You know, from law to medicine to media to everything basically ties into sports. So exposure to all those things is very important. Network, meet and discuss with people who have been in the sport before to learn as much as possible from it. I was chatting with Peter earlier, and I was just talking about how during my career I took it upon myself to learn as much as I could and take advantage of all the opportunities we had with travel to learn about all the cities we went to. That's usually a problem amongst our athletes, is that everybody just, you know, goes into one routine, and it's airport, hotel, stadium, airport, and yet you're in all these amazing places around the world, and you don't get a chance to really see London, New York, Paris, Rome, Sydney, the way you should with that opportunity. So, you know, exposure, learning, adventure with all these things is really important, because after your career ends, then you can reminisce and say, oh, I've been there, done this, met these people, seen this and done that. And it just enriches your life as a person. So it's not just about success in the sport, you know, winning or doing very well in your particular event. It's about getting all that well-rounded exposure that the sport has afforded you.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
It's all about looking for a well-rounded exposure, a well-rounded individual. And I can't help but think that's really what clients are looking for, a well-rounded individual. In looking at our athletes, those who are coming, those who have been, it's about being a well-rounded individual, not just to attract sponsorship, but also for you as a human being. So I would like to give you the closing shot.
For me, I would say that starting with our federations, number one, and then with our athletes, we need to do more, especially look at the museum, for example. I must say that I was once in a room and I was dealing with a foreign sports agency, and Martin's father walked into the room and the meeting stopped, and they wanted to know for him to repeat the story, his famous story of the 1500 meters. And I was embarrassed. I'd never heard the story for the first time.
Heard the story.
And I heard it for the first time, and I was
things.
like, and everybody in that room wanted to hear that story and said, those stories need to be told a little bit more. There's some very, very interesting stories from our stars. There's, I think, the Australian Olympics. Which one was that? And we got the first 1, 2, 3 in the steeplechase.
Sydney.
Sydney. There's a very, very interesting in the steeplechase. One of our athletes lost his shoe and actually went to win the race. There's very, very interesting stories that could actually make very good content now that we need to actually go out and actually tell those stories. But I think the problem that affecting athletes is also affecting other areas of business. It's in the world of social media. And everybody's thought, since it's social, it's something we play around. It's now actually business media. And I would actually urge the federations, the athletes to actually look at ways to actually capitalize this because they come to us and they want as to help them get sponsorship, but they're not ready because the sponsors want something ready that's actually really marketable. So running is good, and the amount of hours people like Catherine were putting in, I mean, you cannot joke with that, but we're just asking for a little bit more. As you're saying, to become all-rounded, to say that it's not just revenues on the track, but there's revenues off the track that can actually sustain them beyond 30 and into their retirement, and they could actually have good livelihoods thereafter.
Yeah, and can we just agree as Kenyans that for our champions, we just let them not pay taxes? I can live with that. I'd happily live with that. It wouldn't be nice if we didn't have to pay taxes.
I believe it would be good because one, the name that they have brought to our country.
Yes.
They have really done much to build the name of our country and to sell it out there.
As well?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time. I can never express my gratitude enough, but I am happy to tell your stories and shout about them. This for me is the greatest honor, to be able to be in your presence and to hear your stories and to just pow a little bit with you. Thank you so much for making the time to speak with me. I truly am very grateful. I'm sure each one of you has your preferred social media handle where once in a while you know you're active and you do. So I am going to share those handles on all my social media profiles, so check them out. Thank you for watching this episode. Remember to click subscribe, hit that bell. Yes, that's clicking notification so you never miss an episode when we upload. A very big thank you to Saxon Violins at the Waterfront Karen, East Africa's premier lifestyle and retail destination. Come out here and set up shop with leading local and international brands. Thank you so much for being with us. Until our next episode, live out loud in all that you do. Bye for now.